Lisa Shorr. Had a great conversation with Lisa. What do you know about branding? We all heard of it before. We understand how it works, I guess. Is it organic? Do you create it? We have these high level celebrities and companies that really really make sure their brand goes in a certain direction. But if you're a small business owner, how do you create a brand? How do you make sure your image is accepted and perceived the way you want it to be? She is currently a managed service provider, has a firm there in the Northeast in Rhode Island with her husband. She also has a personal branding company as well. She just released a book where she talks about branding. We talk about it in the discussion here. I posed several questions to her, the difference between sales and marketing, culture and branding. Marketing is fascinating to me. I never really understood it when I was a small business owner, when I was an MSP. But now it's taken on a whole different level, and it's so necessary in order to have successful sales, in order to have successful growth. You need great marketing. You need great branding. Great discussion with Lisa Shorr. I did ask her about discipline. Very interesting response. Her motivation. It's just very interesting to hear such unique perspective. One on leadership, which was very new to me. I never quite had that angle before. But she has a very unique perception on leadership. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Lisa Shorr, thank you for your time. What's the difference between sales and marketing?
The difference between sales and marketing brings in the leads, sales close it.
That simple.
Well, no, you need both. No.
You need both.
Is that part of our interview, or?
We're having a conversation right now. Many small businesses don't really look at them as two separate entities. They look at them as the same sometimes.
I think that you need to have a lot of brand building first. You need to establish trust. You need to establish credibility. You need to establish clarity in your message. A confused buyer often doesn't buy. And so, to answer your question, the difference between marketing and sales is marketing creates that clarity of why they should buy from you.
Do you want to connect with business leaders and engage consumers who take action? The Joey Pinz podcast delivers high-impact conversations to an audience of decision makers, entrepreneurs, and professionals across multiple industries. A fast-growing audience of highly engaged listeners, both B2B and B2C. Millions of listens and views across YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Brands that sponsor us see real engagement, conversations, and brand loyalty. Whether you're looking to sell a service, promote a product, or establish thought leadership, our sponsorships offer premium ad placements, exclusive episode sponsorships, full season branding, and event partnerships. Don't just advertise, become part of the conversation. Visit us at joeypinz.com/sponsor to get started, or email us at sales@joeypinz.com. Joey Pinz Podcast, where thought leaders, brands connect.
What is the reason?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The difference between branding and marketing?
Sales and marketing.
No.
Oh, what's the difference between branding?
Yes.
So I'd say, let me think here. Branding establishes when you focus on branding, you're establishing notoriety. You're establishing who you are in the marketplace, creating that notability, that memorability, right? That's what we want in a brand. We want to be notable. We want to be remembered. when
Mm.
we think of Nike, when we think of Oprah, different, it could be a human or it could be a product. Why do we remember it? Because of the quality, the value, the consistency and messaging and who they are and the value that they're delivering. And so that's branding. Branding is that building of notability. Like, what do you want to be known for? What is it that you want to be seen for, known for? And then the actions, the product, the humans behind it build that brand.
Mm.
And so it's a foundational component of marketing. You can't have good marketing if you don't have strong branding. They have to come hand in hand. They have to.
Branding falls under marketing, but oftentimes, or you tell me, does branding happen without even your intention?
Well, here comes Lisa Shorr.
Okay.
Herein lies why I'm on this earth. So, yes. So first, I want to quickly say that branding isn't just in marketing. Branding is in every single experience from lead to client. Branding has to play a role in each. It
Hmm.
has to. So, because if we break that brand and we break that trust, or we break that reason why that someone has decided to work with us, then we lose that credibility, and that's critical. So I forgot your question now. So go back to your
Is
question again.
branding organic? Does it happen
Is branding
naturally?
okay? Thank you. So because I wanted to make sure I made that point on recording that it's critical. Branding often is it's always going to be there. Every single aspect of our lives
Hmm.
has some sort of branding to it when we make any kind of decision. Now, the key is to be intentional with how you want to be perceived by others. That's the key. It's that intentionality, Joe, that people, that not enough of us. So when I talk about soft skills and communication skills, the most common response I get is, "Oh, Lisa, I already know this stuff."
Hmm.
And so then I push back and I say, well, you called me because you're having a churn issue or because you're having communication with team struggles. So you might know these concepts, but how are you applying them?
Mm.
How often are you applying them? And are you applying them properly for each audience? That's such a critical component. Are you applying them properly for each audience?
Mm.
So, yes, everybody is branding Joe. And not enough emphasis. I'm going to go out on a limb here and just be, I wrote my book for a reason. So, and not enough emphasis is placed on branding.
So, Lisa, when there's a big time celebrity, and we as consumer don't like to think we're being branded to, but we are. We're being shown certain things about him or her to kind of put them into particular light to brand them. But when they go out of that brand, when Will Smith slapped,
Oh yeah, Chris Rock.
Chris Rock at the Oscars, he went out of brand, and so he went quiet for a while, but now we see him kind of popping up here and there. I mean, so what happens at that point? Does the marketing team go crazy and say we got to go on a critical, you know, uh, you know, marketing adventure here and rebranding? I mean, what happens? So you create a brand. That's why I asked about organics. You create a brand, but then something happens that takes you out of that.
And that will happen. And then
Yeah.
and so it's how the leader addresses it. How and in an MSP, we're small enough that we have the ability to address it.
Hmm.
And so there will be situations that were off brand. So my IT company, I became Shorr's success because my IT company went off brand and we were fired from a
Mm.
client of 10 years because of our phone skills. So the best and most resilient MSPs do a couple of things. They, one, take ownership for their actions. They're not blaming others. They're not saying, well, I didn't know, or, well, no, it's the market, it's the industry, it's the whatever it
Mm.
is at that moment. They take ownership. Number two is then they take action and you make change. Because when you go off brand, often what happens is we'll lose a client, we'll lose an employee, because the employee no longer believes in what you are offering, or a client no longer feels that they're being treated like a VIP.
Mm.
So it happens, but the trick is to create change, is to take action, and maybe it's communicating with clients, maybe it's depending, it really depends on what the situation is. For us, when we were fired, we apologized. We got the privilege, and I say this lightly, but we had the privilege of having an exit interview, Joe. So
Mm.
so not all clients will give you, they'll just say you're too expensive
Right.
oftentimes. But we actually, because we had such a long relationship with this client actually called us into their office
Hmm.
to talk to us about it. We thought we
Wow.
were going to have a conversation about a server migration we were doing at the time. And we thought had nothing to do with that. I mean, that was just like, it was a good excuse to get Eric in the office. But when push came to shove, what he really wanted to talk about was our customer service experience that they did not get.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. So that's critical to make that change, but take ownership for it and not play the blame game.
So your book, Brand Unleashed, and we'll go through, yeah, right there. Yeah, your
Thank you.
brand, and you have it's an acronym. It's all capitalized. So, I mean, what can small to medium businesses? You mentioned MSP, managed service provider, which are small to medium business, outsourced IT. I mean,
Mhm.
so tell me, what can some of them do? Let's go through. Let's go through your brand. Behavior is B.
B is behavior, and that focuses on our emotional intelligence primarily. It's time management and it's how we're acting and reacting, but it's truly being present. And how do we? And so I mentioned earlier about each audience member, Joe, you have to change the way you speak to different people.
Mm.
A lawyer, hard charging, like they're billable, so give them what they need. But maybe someone in a nonprofit needs to be spoken to a little more softly,
Mm.
meaning like just a little more delicately, but knowing your audience, you're not going to speak to the president of a company the same way that you're speaking when you're answering the call. Your client is going to hear, you'll speak to the client differently. You'll speak to a president differently. The way I speak to you and demonstrating authority in this industry is different than maybe if I'm speaking to an employee that
Mm.
I'm having a difficult conversation with, or I'm talking about, giving some feedback on the brand method, on some facet of it. So that's B. That's behavior. It's how we act. It's being intentional and really thinking about, how do I respond so that I maintain trust?
And Will Smith is an example of how he broke that behavior.
He did. He did. He walked up on that. He demonstrated a true lack of self-control.
Straight, yeah.
And in that, and then that, I mean, he can be angry. He can want to defend Jada. He could, but Chris Rock was also doing his job of
He's a
roasting.
comedian. He's stand-up
And he's a
comedian.
comedian.
Yeah.
And the expectation, whether people like it or not, there was speculation at the Super Bowl the other day that people were booing Taylor Swift. Were they
Correct.
booing Taylor Swift, or were they booing someone else or something else? I don't know. I mean, but Taylor had a way to respond. She didn't shout back. She didn't, she sat and she was a little confused and was wondering, like, was this toward me? Was it? So people have a choice. Everybody, Joe, has a choice of how to respond. Some people need coaching on how to respond because they really
Hmm.
don't know. I had someone in an audience once say to me, "What should I have said when I called my client an idiot?" And I was like, I'm like, no, no, no. What would you really say? Oh, no, I called him an idiot. And I said, okay, well, let's have a conversation of other alternative ways to say it. Let's talk about taking a deep breath before you say things like that. Like you have a choice. And so we unpacked that. But there are people in our industry that are truly just unaware. So let's make them aware. Let's
Hmm.
let's let's help them through it. Give them the benefit of the doubt. So that's B in a nutshell.
Respect.
Respect. There's three forms. One is ourselves, and really understanding that if we don't take care of ourselves and respect ourselves, I think we're improving and we're evolving in this industry, but historically the IT industry has been unhealthy in food choices and exercise because we're sitting
Ah,
behind a computer screen and we're not taking time to take deep breaths. We're not taking time to drink water. We're not making the time. I always keep a bottle of water because we're speaking. It hydrates, it flushes out toxins. Keeping weights at your desk, maybe little 3-pound weights. I always keep little tiny weights at my desk just to do something. If I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed, how am I going to calm myself down? Then there's two other pieces, and that's respecting your corporate brand. What does it stand for? It's understanding the company's core values and do the behaviors of the team align with that? Does it align with that? And then the other piece, which is critical, which we didn't respect, especially when we got fired, was let's talk about the client's brand.
hmm.
And the services we provide benefit the client's brand, helps them grow. So we need to focus on that. We need to have conversations about ways to demonstrate respect. And what I say in the book is I like to say that how do we demonstrate being a leadership star? And I like to teach through acronyms because it's an easy way to explain things. It's easy to remember acronyms. I mean, this book is all about being a handout for an MSP or an
Hmm.
IT service provider. Give them the foundation so they know how there's team exercises and things. So R is all about respecting ourselves, our corporate brand for where we work, as well as the client's corporate brand.
You mentioned being a leadership star.
Hmm.
What's the difference between being a leader and a manager?
There isn't really a difference. The leader
Hmm.
and a manager and I mean, a leader could be an owner. So I guess maybe a differentiator could be what's the difference between an owner and a manager? And both have a responsibility of inspiration and influence,
Hmm.
and they need to be a leader is someone that does have more decision making on strategy, determining the culture of the company, especially in a small business. And the manager is someone, I think there's a bigger discussion on this, but I think essentially a manager is someone who inspires their team to align with the core values of a company,
Hmm.
and inspires them, and is able to give feedback and course correct when needed, but needs to be a driving force that understands what the leader wants.
Hmm.
A leader has a massive opportunity to communicate what they want in numbers, the goals for the company, as well as the core values of the company, the behavior that they want in the company, the client outcomes, the value. So I hope that answers your question, like the difference between a leader and a manager. My idea of a leader, and a manager is a leader, but the owner versus a manager.
How Yeah, I've had discussions with former employees that were managers and thought they were leaders, and you kind of have to have that discussion. How how does culture affect branding?
Culture affects branding. Branding creates the culture.
Hmm. Not
Branding,
the other way around. Interesting.
no, because, well, I think that they're hand in hand. I
Mm.
think when you have the core, you have personal core values of the humans. Let me see if I can unpack this in, in our short time together. You have your core values of as a human, and you join an organization and you hire somebody. If you're the leader, the owner or the manager, and you hire someone that you believe fits your culture. Okay, so most companies have an established culture. Now, it could be what they call a toxic culture,
Mm.
or it could be an amazing culture that people want to work for and work with and build that brand. And that starts with the leader. So the leader sets the tone of the culture. So the leader's brand and belief on leadership skills and how he wants to be perceived, how he wants to lead, he or she, I should say he or she, of course, wants to lead, that establishes the framework for a great culture. So then you have the people within that culture that are now living, breathing humans to bring that culture to life.
Mm.
Culture doesn't just exist unto itself. Culture exists because the humans within it make it that way.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Am I
So the
I don't want to
parallels
do too much geek speak, I want
I
to make
love
sure
it.
I
No, no. So I see parallels with culture and branding because if you're not careful about your culture, the culture will be created instead of you creating it. And I think
right.
the same thing can happen with branding.
I think that culture happens when you don't focus on communicating with your team what you want.
Mm.
When a team is confused, when a team is disgruntled, when employee issues, they'll inevitably happen, aren't addressed, so then they fester. That, or maybe there's some process issues within the company and clients are giving poor customer service reviews, CSAT scores, or whatever you track in your company. That impacts the culture of a company. That impacts the service that a client will receive. So it's inevitable to come full circle and to really take stock in the humans in our company.
Mm.
And what do they understand is, so you said there was some confusion from a manager not realizing that he's a leader, or maybe
He
every
thought he
single,
was a leader, but he wasn't. He's a manager.
but I don't know if there was a clear definition or delineation to be fair to that manager, because he,
Mm.
to me, every single person in a company is a leader. They are
Every single.
everyone. They're in charge of
Explain.
their role. They're in charge of their role.
Define
Whether
leader.
a leader is someone that inspires others around them. A leader is someone that takes action and takes charge of their
Hmm.
of their journey. And so whether you're a bench tech and you're prepping computers for a larger installation that your level 2 or level 3 tech is going to do, if you do a crappy job and you don't take ownership for your role, then it's going to impact the next level's engineer when they're on site. And then the client will see that. And then they start to create perceptions. And then there's frustration because then that engineer is going to be frustrated with the bench engineer. And then the bench engineer is going to, could potentially be making excuses. And so we need to shift what we believe in our society, what a leader is. A leader doesn't have to just be the person on the top, at the top. And my mission with my life and Shorr's success is to say we're all leaders. How do we take ownership for who we are and where we are? It's kind of a controversial statement, I think, but
Very much so. Yeah. Can you have a successful business when it's run all everybody's a leader?
so I want to delineate. There's someone in charge. There's the owner. I want to
Mhm.
change that for my purposes. A leader isn't always let's delineate. There's the owner who has leadership abilities and qualities. There's a manager, dispatcher, let's say, or director of operations. They have to manage and lead a team. But each individual person has to take leadership for their own behavior, their actions,
So they have to lead themselves.
to lead to their mindset, to lead themselves. Yes, to lead
It's interesting.
their
Interesting perspective.
project, I mean, there's too often people are siloing themselves, or they're not understanding the true value of their role. And that's because they think I'm just and then fill in the blank. I'm just an admin. I'm just a level 1. I'm just a receptionist. No. Every single person has a hand in the success of their culture and their IT company. Every person. A receptionist answers the phone, so they're their first greeting. What first impression is a lead going to get a prospect calling going to receive, which then gets transferred over to sales? If sales is cranky, or does sales have their act together and are they organized? So they have to take a leadership stance in their process. Then if sales closes it, then it goes over to procurement. And then procurement has to have an understanding of how to order, what the quoting was, and that whole process, right? And then it goes over to service. Service needs to understand and sales has a responsibility, a leadership responsibility, so to speak, to tell service who the new client is, what they're on, who they're onboarding, what their pain points were. So then it goes over to billing again. And we want to make sure they pay their bills, because cash is king in a company, right? So I hope that gives you an understanding of, it's not just the owner isn't the only leader in the company, or someone with a title manager isn't the only leader. They have a responsibility of inspiring others and upholding the culture. But every person in the company is so critical to success. Every person. I don't want to minimize anybody's job. Anybody's job.
It's an interesting perspective. I do think there's some employees that don't want to be leaders. They want to do what they do in their position and do it really well.
And that to me is leader. That's a
Huh.
leader. They don't have to be there. We need every type of person in a company. We need people who are going to be behind the computer, 100%. We need people who are going to be front facing. We need people. But the key is
So
to understand,
define leader again. Define
a
leader again.
leader is someone who takes ownership for their role, their responsibility.
Ah, okay. This is a
You
very
know,
different description. See, I think a leader is someone who leads.
they lead with the job that they complete. They lead with taking pride and ownership in their role.
Leads others.
And then leads others to success. So if your bench tech takes ownership and leadership for
Hmm,
setting up that workstation, that server,
very
then
interesting.
hands it over with pride and a checklist to the next engineer who is now going to bring it on site, he just took control of, and he led a process of the overall deployment. So I just think that we need to take more of a micro view of what a leader is. And not enough people are, and that, because then if you don't take ownership and believe that you're a leader, then it's not my problem. It's not my fault. It's not my job. We want
Very interesting
people.
perspective. You should write a blog about this. It's a very, very unique perspective. The A in branding is appearance.
I'm writing that down. So leader blog.
Yeah, I first time hearing that viewpoint. It's very interesting.
Good. I
Yeah,
want to be, yes, I want to open up
very
people's
interesting.
minds. Good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm glad. So appearance is just what it is. And the key component of appearance is how do you want to be perceived by others? This
Mm.
is not about, although I've helped companies write some dress code policies and things like that, but this is all about going back to that core value of, your corporate core values and what is respecting your corporate brand. And our appearance aligns with that. What are we wearing?
Hmm.
Are we considering the brand? Are we a distraction? That's something I think is critical to, because I'm not telling anybody in this industry. I don't want anyone to misconstrue, although I did definitely wear for you today, Joe, a structured
Thank
jacket.
you.
Like I always
You look
consider what I'm
great.
wearing. And
Thank you.
blue is very calming. It's a very
Mm.
professional color. I was very intentional with my outfit today. It is about aligning with your brand and how you want to be perceived by others. And when we break, so there's a word, Joe, called consistency
Mm.
in the image world. And my image teacher, so I'm a member of the Association of Image Consultants International, and my beautiful image coach, uh, more than 10 years ago, said to me, consistency is a standard below which you will not fall.
Hmm.
A standard below which you will not fall. So, what are your standards for your company? And when you take stock and look around at your team, are they aligning with that? So, your clothing and your appearance and logoed shirts, structured jackets, depending on where you're speaking and depending on the industry. But the other piece of that is also nonverbal behavior.
Mm.
So, we make, it's called value judgments. We make value judgments fast. And there have been studies called, there's studies called, Northwestern University did a study on enclothed cognition. And that is how, and I'm completely paraphrasing it, but it's essentially what people are wearing and how it makes them perceive themselves. How does it make them feel? And so when we think about, the clothing on our bodies, if we're showing up in sweatpants and we're showing, and I, even though we're in a remote environment, I still considered what was around me. I considered my lighting. I considered my camera placement. I considered my microphone, all those things. And I also considered that I'm trying very hard to look at my camera and not at the two of us on screen
Mm.
so that I look like I'm looking at you. It is so hard, so
It is.
hard. But when you're at a networking event, when you're in a negotiation, when you're having a difficult conversation, are you taking stock in your physical presence? Are you shifting your body and looking out the window? Or maybe you're at a networking event and you're trying to meet new prospects, but your body is sort of turned and your shoulder is facing the person. Are you giving a weak handshake?
Mm.
That demonstrates no confidence. Are you crossing your arms? Because that could be perceived either as confidence or it could be perceived as I'm nervous. It could be bravado. It could be perception is reality, other people's perception. So
Mm.
that's what A is all about. And I provide a whole wardrobe because a lot of people just don't know what I should be wearing. What do I wear? What should be in my closet? And I started Shorr Success. Actually, I was a stylist called Shorr Style, and I was cleaning professional closets as a part-time gig because I love clothing. I love fashion. I love the way clothing presents itself. I love
Mm.
the power of color. But I realized I needed to expand my skills. And so I shifted Shorr Style because I didn't want to just be a stylist. I wanted to shift it to image. So Shorr Success. And I want everybody to have that success with our appearance, with our nonverbal behavior. There's a lot of nuances, and we don't want to give people a reason to go somewhere else because you made them feel not listened to,
Mm.
not heard, or you're showing up in such an unkempt way that they think, oh, is your work going to be this sloppy?
Hmm.
It could be. And I'm not saying yes to any of it. I'm saying it's perception. And I've been in business. So my MSP is 33 years old. I've been around for 26 of it, and I have seen it all. And I have seen it all. And then I've been an image consultant for 10 years. And oh, this is a big chapter that gets overlooked in our industry. So, big chapter.
Your brand deserves to be in front of the right audience decision makers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ready to take action. That's exactly who listens to the Joey Pinz podcast. Thousands of engaged business leaders and consumers tune in every week. Millions of views and listens across YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Sponsors see real impact, higher engagement, brand trust, and conversations. We offer strategic partnerships tailored to your goals, including targeted ad placements, branded guest appearances, multi-episode and event sponsorships. Make your brand part of the conversation. Let's grow together. Visit joeypinz.com/sponsor to explore sponsorship opportunities, or email us at sales@joeypinz.com. The Joey Pinz podcast, where brands and thought leaders connect. Can appearance go beyond physical and, to email signatures and to what your
Okay.
wallpaper is? I mean, it seemed to me it just doesn't end at physical appearance, because there's less and less in that in our industry.
So I put that in dynamic dialogue, and but yes,
Ah,
indeed. But yes, the answer is a resounding yes. We make a lot of error in email because it's misunderstood. It's one dimensional.
hmm.
At least, the physical side of things is three-dimensional. You multi-dimensional depending, but you can see somebody, you can see eye contact, you can see behaviors. Email, you have no idea what someone is saying. I need that report by noon tomorrow. What report? Are you mad at me? Because it's all in caps, it's all exclamation points. What didn't I get you? What do you need? What data do you want? Like, look at all the missing pieces. Just as someone, at least if someone could say, dear, or hey, Joe, can you send me a summary of our recording? I'm looking for 3 key points that I can then turn into a blog. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Sincerely, Lisa Shorr. So I just fixed, a misunderstood potential email and turned it into something friendly and warm, and just took a few minutes of just thoughtfulness, just a few minutes of courtesy of what you're looking for, and making the other person feel like supported. Oh, I'm so excited that you want to take this content and expand it and turn it into more. And so doesn't that energy feel so much better? So,
See, I was talking more of email signature. And when you're talking to somebody virtually, are there logos there? What
mm,
appearance
oh,
much more beyond physical? I'm talking about the consistency and appearance of
yes.
branding and marketing in the emails, not specifically the subject of the
Oh, well
email.
then yes. So then absolutely. I don't mention that in the book, but oh yeah. Your email signature should be current if you have links in it. I like having logos in the signature, and if you don't have a logo, I like that you at least have an ability to book a meeting with you. You always want to make yourself accessible, making sure your website content is up to date. A big missed opportunity is LinkedIn, and you have a great LinkedIn page, Joe, and you worked on your header. You worked, it was visually appealing and vibrant. Your headshot. You've got content in there. There's a lot of opportunity to make sure you maintain brand consistency.
Hmm.
And brand consistency absolutely encompasses your in-person presence as well as all your online facets. Yes. So to answer your question, resounding yes. For sure.
Where, Lisa, where does social media fall in branding?
Oh my gosh. I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
We all do.
We all do, right?
Yeah.
We all know that we need to be there. We all know that we need to be authentic. We all know that many, many people just put the positives out there. But in this day and age, people are Googling us all the time. What are they going to find? Right? So people are looking for what we stand for. They're looking for Are we current with our content? Because they'll want to partner with people who are current, who are innovators, who are thinkers, who are. I was excited I reached out to you and very intentionally. You and I share 300 mutual contacts on LinkedIn. We have the same mindset of being an influencer and being, really bringing this industry, making it shine even brighter than it is. So we had a lot of commonalities. And I found that first before I met you
Hmm.
on social media. So it's critical that the standards for social media are the same as our standards, because before a prospect might even meet you, they're already searching you. They're already wondering, what do you stand for? What content do you post? What classes do you offer? Who do you partner with? Who else do you know? Can't have one without the other in this
Mm.
day and age.
The N in brand is networking.
Love it. Love, love, love. So this is my foray of getting outside the physical and being physically present for other people. And there's three types of networking that I talk about and that I think we need to focus on. It's not just the traditional marketing networking. That's critical. We want to build credibility. We need to bring in leads. We can't have marketing without leads coming in. Got to have the leads, and you got to have the people to work those leads, and you got to have the salespeople, and then so that's the traditional side. Marketing with your clients in terms of QBRs or TBRs, quarterly business review meetings, technical business review meetings, some sort of review meetings with your clients. And I like to say we don't want to give our clients and prospects a reason to call somebody else. Like if you meet a client, you onboard them, you get them all set up, and then too many of my clients have said, I haven't booked a QBR ever. Well, by luck and by good service, you've kept that client. But think about all the opportunities that you're missing. Maybe they're expanding, maybe they're moving, maybe whatever additional opportunities could come up, but also an opportunity to hear feedback on your company. How are you
QBR's
doing?
quarterly business review.
Yeah, at least quarterly. Some people do, a few times a year. So put it on your agenda. That's all I can say. Just put it on your agenda. And I provide a process in the book. If people have no idea what to do or how to do it, you can follow the process I provide. Then the third piece is our technical teams having the ability to sell without selling. So
That's a tough one, Lisa. They all think it's slimy, and yeah, they
mhm,
don't like it.
they don't like it. We had a client who had a server that we tried for literally over a year. And every time they saw my sales team coming, stop selling me. I'm not ready. I'm not spending the money. What are you selling me now? Like, this is, and for all of us that know these things, the server crashes, there's downtime, there's cyber vulnerability. I don't have to tell you all the things that drive us bananas. And we know the pitfalls. So we needed another tactic. And we decided we have a good team now. We have a team that's articulate, that's brand focused, that has great relationships with our clients. We're going to have him, it would happen to be a guy, this one, go to the client and say to the client, I'm concerned about your server. And I want you to consider talking to, I know Eric's reached out to you. Consider talking to Eric again, because I don't want to see you guys have downtime. I don't want to see X, Y, and Z. Wouldn't you know?
It's all took.
Because he wasn't salesy,
Hmm.
he's his day-to-day advisor. So now think about all of the different sales and it's not for every single item. And I'm not at all saying that our tech team are salespeople, but they're great recommenders.
Hmm.
I call them seed planters. And again, there's another acronym, but I love teaching through acronyms because people can remember simple words. It's easy to think about the word star and brand and seed. You see the problem, You engage sales and ask what the problem is, right? And then you engage the client. No, you engage the client first, excuse me. Then you engage your sales team once you've made the recommendation
Hmm.
so sales can follow up. So it's a process. But once again, I'm asking people to take leadership responsibility for their role and stress the importance to the engineer that if they are making a recommendation, and thank you so much, by the way, bring it back to sales so sales can follow up.
Hmm.
And that's where, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of reason why we want to build the credibility and build the knowledge of our team to be brand focused first and outcomes driven, not just task driven, but outcomes driven people. So that's N.
So networking is just more open communication. Yeah, and maybe not using the word sales for those technicians or those engineers. Use
Right.
something else.
No,
Use
recommended.
yeah,
Recommendation. Make a
recommendation.
recommendation.
Yeah. That's the way around that. And then your last D, dynamic dialogue, we kind of touched upon is like talking correctly and communicating. You always hear the story of a server going down, the technician, going into the closet and staying in there for a day and then coming out and saying, it won't be fixed for, the client wants to be communicated with periodically. You have to keep that up. Very difficult for a lot of these smart engineer types.
It is. It is. It's it's how you make a client feel that is the reason that they have their job. So it's really understanding that an engineer's job is to make the client happy.
Hmm.
The way they make their client happy is through great service first. And oh, by the way, you're tech savvy. We cannot lead with the stance that technology is going to be enough to grow my business. With technology skills, it's not enough to grow our business. It's not, because there's a lot of people with technology skills, but there aren't a lot of people with people skills.
Hmm.
So be that company that understands when you're answering a call as a dispatcher and the phone initially rings, you're jovial, you're excited,
Hmm.
even if you're in the middle of a ticket. I had a service manager say to me once when I was coaching him on varying his voice, he said, "But Lisa, I'm in the middle of a ticket. I'm busy. I'm just grabbing the phone." And I said, "Well, how
Hmm.
much does it cost your MSP to bring in a lead? How much does it cost to close a client? And by the way, what's the lifetime value of one of your clients?" And so when you calculate the lifetime value of a client, let's say it's 1,000 a month MRR, just say times 12, that's 12,000 a year. Average contracts these days are 3 years. So now you're at 36,000. That's just MRR. I didn't even talk about extraneous projects, that maybe some Wi-Fi wiring that needs, a new VoIP phone system that needs, setup fees that needs. Maybe there's a referral that came in, so there's a new client that came out of that. So now that $36,000 client is in the six-figure range. Can you afford to lose one? Can you afford to just throw away a client like that? So if we don't focus on varying our voice and making someone feel appreciated, heard, understood, calm them down, then what do you have? You have great technical skills, but no clients to service
Hmm.
because they went to your competitor. And notice when I told the story, I was excited at first, and then I varied my voice to show emphasis on concern, on sadness, on our vocal ranges. When if someone can't see anything else, they hear your voice, and people are impacted by your voice and how it makes them feel. That's the trick with all of this, is feeling.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So what can small and medium businesses and MSPs do to improve their brand? What are some simple things they can do?
The first thing, they have to take ownership of their mindset.
Mm.
They have to take ownership.
Hmm.
and they have to make the time. People spend time monitoring data backups, right? How often are we looking at those? Are we looking at the logs? Is there, am I looking for any red? Like, is everything green on the screen, right?
Mhm.
What's red? Okay, let me hone in and find out why that backup didn't save last night. Let me make sure, because you know the end result could be a cyber attack. And if a cyber attack or a ransomware attack happens, at least you've got a great backup, as one example. But taking ownership for soft skills in your company is number one. Number one. And I like to call it, in the book, I call it head trash.
Hmm.
And at the risk of sounding corny, I am going to say this book is number two. And I say this book because I wrote this book as a handout, as a manual, a roadmap for how to have this conversation. There's team exercise. So many people say, well, I don't know how to talk to my team. I don't know how to enforce this. It's all in there. There's scripts, there's team exercises. And I mean, this is 10 years in the making of this book.
Hmm.
So, and people, it's coaching, but it's in there. So it's number one is ownership. And number two is putting to get in a process in place to make these changes. Number three is having regular staff meeting discussions about it. And don't wait until a problem arises. Turn your culture into a culture of discussion. Have the culture of your company, a piece of that culture. Make sure they align with your core values. So for my MSP, one of our core values is be present. How are you present? How are we, or when we look at surveys we get survey responses back, we're looking at Google reviews. What are they saying? And we congratulate those. We talk about those. Or if we have an especially challenging client, we analyze that. We don't just look at the ticket and talk about how we're provisioning the firewall. We're also talking about how do we present it? How do we have a conversation about it? And having that culture, as well as some processes and scripts in place as to what you want to say. So we literally today we're hosting a lunch and learn tomorrow on AI, and my MSP that is hosting a lunch and learn, and we know we're going to get calls because we've been doing advertising to our clients, and it's still newer for all MSPs. AI still isn't completely rolled out. I think I saw a statistic in Microsoft that Copilot has 28 million users. What an opportunity. I mean, that's not that many. Sounds like a lot, but there's a huge opportunity to be an adopter and on the front line of this, right? So, but we told our team, don't just say, if someone calls and asks you, don't just say, I don't know. Say, we're going to find out. Let me get some information. Let me talk to, I know Jocelyn, or I know this person, or whatever was talking about that. Let me get some information and I'll get back to you. Or I know just the right person to send you over to. Let me transfer the call. So that's a good example of dynamic dialogue. If we said, I don't know, and here we are promoting AI and how to use it in your business, then we're breaking brand. We're breaking our consistency and there's another word that I didn't mention, which is congruency. And that's telling your story, telling one story. In math, it's like congruent line, and in image, it's making sure you're aligning your actions with what you're telling people.
Hmm.
That also is a contributor to brand consistency. So critical to how we're saying it and what we're saying. And yeah.
You mentioned ownership, process, discuss. Those are, I'm just getting the feeling that culture is so tightly connected to brand.
Ownership is, the owner sets the tone of what they want to see. The owner leads by example. So leadership is a behavior. All right, I like that behavior. You never know what comes out and what inspiration comes out when you have these organic discussions. I love them. But leadership is our behaviors that build brands and or that set the tone for culture. And the owner has to set the tone for that. Has to be the ultimate inspiration, an ultimate communicator as to what actions are acceptable or unacceptable within their organization. And if they're unacceptable, then they have to make change. They have to utilize their leadership team, their managers are in charge of making sure that the owner's culture and our inspiration, culture, communication is enforced without the company, with their particular team. So yeah, owner has a direct impact, an absolute direct impact in setting the culture of a company. Oh yeah, huge.
Lisa, has there been anything in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Anything I've changed my mind on? No. I feel more strongly about the need for communication and the power of communication. I very strongly of how influenced we are as a society and the power of influence. Not changed, stronger convictions, not changed.
Have you changed
Communication.
anything in the last couple of months? Do you often ever change your mind on anything?
Oh, I love it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I am if you can tell, I'm a woman of detail. So
Yeah.
I love conversations. I love details. Absolutely. If there's a question that comes up, let's talk about it. Let's talk about a better way to do a project. Let's talk about a better way. I have a marketing manager for Shorr's Success, and I'm learning how to now market a book. My degree's in marketing, and I've learned how to market an IT company, but marketing a book and becoming, adding author to my repertoire is a whole different avenue. I had no idea how to do it. So I surround myself with people who can help me and teach me. So yeah, so I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. And I'm going to constantly learn and evolve and grow, and new services come out, new blog ideas. I just wrote down an idea
Hmm.
from you. So thank you.
Looking for a powerful way to reach business leaders and engage consumers? The Joey Pinz podcast connects brands like yours with an audience that listens, engages, and takes action. High impact exposure with a fast growing loyal audience. Millions of views and listens across major platforms. Sponsors see increased brand awareness, trust, and conversations. We make sponsorships simple and effective with custom ad placements that fit your brand, deep audience engagement through authentic conversations, long-term exposure across podcast platforms and social media. Don't miss the opportunity to connect with your ideal customers. Visit joeypins.com/sponsor to secure your sponsorship today. Or you can email us at sales@joeypins.com. The Joey Pinz podcast, where conversations drive results. So I started the MSP in the 90s, and I was working way too hard. You alluded to this at one point in the conversation, how the industry as a whole isn't that healthy, and I was putting my health in the back seat. And then before you know it, I'm in front of the doctor. I'm at 340 pounds, and
Ooh.
she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born, scared the life out of me, Lisa. So I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel, upset at myself. Spent the next 6, 7 months, lost 130 pounds, kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line. You have to make life changes. Now, when I tell this story, I always get, what's your secret? How'd you do it? And there's no secret, Lisa. Discipline. That's how I lost it. That's how I did it. How does discipline, I got, motivation, routine, etc. How does discipline play a role in your life, Lisa? Sure.
Discipline to I think it's forefront in order for me to, and truth be told, I haven't always taken care of myself either. And at my stage of life, I have to take care of myself.
Mm.
Medical issues were presenting themselves that are now under control, and we can't just be we can't just be warriors. So we have to
Mm.
discipline our time, but also be disciplined in what we're working on. Like, I have two businesses now that I'm living in two worlds, and I've got 22 employees to inspire on one side, and then I have my building a coaching client repertoire on the other side. So it's a lot of discipline and focus on figuring out your priorities of your day. And truthfully, there are days that I'm like, I just ran in a hamster wheel
Mm.
because I didn't sit down and write my priorities out. I like list building. I have a ton of lists, and I like some little post-it notes to kind of make sure I remember to do certain things and put stuff in my calendar, and trying to prioritize. So discipline has to be part of our mindset.
Mm.
And we can get distracted in social media and go down that rabbit hole, or I'm just going to grab a burger and fries because it's quick. Maybe you can be disciplined and prepare some meals ahead of time, and then you can parse it out and have multiple smaller meals, but they're a much healthier option. Or just having the discipline to set a timer and stand up, or have weights at your desk, because my neck gets stiff and tired, and I want to loosen it. And so the weights remind me, even though they're 3 pounds, but it reminds me I've got to do a little bit something for me,
Mm.
or else I'm not going to be good for anybody.
What motivates you, Lisa?
My core values, which two of them, my two core values, which are compassion and impact. And
Mm.
I have not changed, though. I know you're asking me, like, Lisa, can you change your mind? Can you expand your mindset? And I learned those core values, or I revealed those core values 10 years, no, yeah, 10 years ago now, when I was in class, one of my image classes. I've ongoing training, but this was one. And they asked us to do core values. And I was like, well, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to say? I just want to look good. I just want to look good and have a good company. I didn't think about it. It was the hardest thing.
Hmm.
But when I really thought about it, what drives me is having compassion for my family, for my friends, for my businesses, my employees, giving them the grace and space to live their lives and do an amazing job. And then impact. What impact am I going to leave on this earth when I go?
Hmm.
What are people going to remember me by? I want people to remember me as someone who cared so deeply about how we communicate that I wrote a book about it. I'm spending time, making the time to work with others, to help others thrive and survive, and be mindful that what we say impacts others. And it matters how we say things, how we communicate matters. Starting with having an awareness of how it triggers us. This is a whole other conversation, but there's a whole trigger process here of how we were raised, and by whomever we were raised by, whatever environment we were in, we take that with us. But that doesn't have to define our consistent reactions. We have a choice. And for those of us who have the capacity, not everybody has the capacity, absolutely. But for those of us who have the capacity to make a choice on how we respond, let's do that.
Hmm.
Let's make that choice. That's what motivates me every day. Every
So,
day.
so given those core values, compassion and impact, how do you measure success?
I measure success by my friends, by the success of my children,
Hmm.
by the success of my business. My IT business has more than doubled in size since I started. Our profitability, most importantly, has grown. And so I measure that, client reviews on both sides of the house. What are they saying about the reaction and the response? Now I'm measuring book reviews. And what are people saying about my book? And randomly people are saying, I read that chapter on appearance and now, and we had this conversation about it because I remembered that chapter. That is amazing.
Hmm.
An amazing feeling. And of course, it's business success, it's business growth, it's clients, it's referrals. But first and foremost is how my family doing?
Hmm.
How are they doing? How are they thriving? Am I being present for them? What qualities do I see? What impact have I had on their success and growth? So I have two gorgeous daughters that are growing. They're in their 20s now.
Hmm.
They're at pivotal stages of life. Pivotal. I hope I did a good job and my husband and I did a good job, it's proving me yes. So I'm grateful. So yeah, that's how.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. I have two daughters in their 20s as well. It's an amazing, amazing time, Lisa. I thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your candidness and willingness to talk. You're a great person to bounce ideas off of. Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can visit shoresuccess.com. My website is there. I am offering a free exercise in my book because I feel so strongly about our head trash. And I know it's holding us back. It's that roadblock to everybody's success. I have a download and it's shoresuccess.co/mindset success exercise. And you can download this exercise first as the owner of the company, do it with yourself, then turn it into a staff meeting discussion. Start shifting the perception of what a leader really is and what it means to take leadership for our actions. And that's how they can contact me. And I so appreciate the time, Joe. I knew this would be a cool conversation. It's even better than I imagined.
Sure, SHORR success.com. You're on LinkedIn, as we mentioned, Facebook, Linktree, YouTube, X, Twitter. We'll make sure we put your link to Amazon to get your book as well.
Instagram. I'm there.
Instagram, you're all over Instagram as well.
Find
Lisa,
me.
thanks so much. I look forward. I'll see you at the next event.
I'll see you there. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.